Hello, I hope the sound is working this week and let me know if it's not. Right, so before I get stuck into coding tonight, I just want to talk a little bit about this article. By the way, it's mirrored. That article. And a comment that somebody made last week about using throwIO instead of using error. So I went and had a look because I was kind of interested in the topic, and there's a lot more to learn about it, but short version is I think it was fine to use error. But I'm basing it mostly on this article. So it talks about three different types of exceptions. There are imprecise exceptions, which I think is the case that we have here. And these are things where you basically don't want to catch them. So if something has gone wrong, there is no recovering from it. It's just a bad thing has happened. And I think that's what I have in my code. If I just switch the code for a second, this line that says, if we don't recognize the thing, throw an error saying unexpected command. I don't expect any one or any piece of code to catch that I'm doing with it. It's simply, I haven't implemented it yet. There's nothing good can come out of it. So I'm just going to use error and basically make the program crash. So that's imprecise exceptions. There are then, it splits into synchronous and asynchronous exceptions. So synchronous is the throwIO stuff, and asynchronous is through to. But essentially, those are things you expect to be caught. So the example I give here is disk being full, file being corrupted, something like that. So you can catch that, and you can either just exit, or you could say you could retry, I guess. Or something like that. But it is something where the program is complete. It's just that you can't handle that particular scenario. So I think in my case, if we just look at the code again, where I'm saying I haven't implemented this yet, throw an error, I think that's a reasonable thing to do. So I'm going to leave the code like that. Okay, so that out of the way. Plan for tonight. It's just a little bit of relaxing refactoring, although I'll probably get distracted at some point. But where are we? So I've started to move over from the old storage abstraction to the new one, and I got it working for a bunch of things. But I discovered at the end of last time, where was it that went wrong? I think it was, we had to look at the cast stuff. That's not the cast, that was the API stuff. The cast server. Yeah, there was some stuff about participants I was testing out. And one of them was like listing participants. And I've implemented it somewhere. Goodness. So I'd implemented it in file storage as undefined. So, or rather, I haven't implemented it, I just written undefined. So part of the plan for today is to go through and fill in definitions for these things. The other thing is to rip out the old code. So I had an old storage abstraction here and some old handlers here. I'm just going to go through and start replacing those, I think, just so that we can get rid of all the old code and the old modules that we're not using anymore. Part of the plan. The other thing is back in the API, where I've implemented like get cast or delete host, whatever, these are duplicated a little bit. So if I have a look in commands for cast, there's another like remove host rather than delete host because naming is hard. But it's doing almost the same thing. Here, okay, I've written it slightly differently, but basically we're taking the input text. So here we're taking the input string, we're converting it to a host, we're getting the storage. So that's happening here. Different names, obviously, because consistency is hard. And then I'm calling remove host on that storage. And here I'm saying remove host on that storage. It's essentially the same thing. It seems weird to repeat it here and get all the naming different. So one thing I might look at doing is putting that somewhere and calling it from two different places. So it's basically something that will have this signature. And then I'll just call that either from the API or from the non-API version, the CLI version. And in places where we're returning stuff, so in the API we return some information and we display it back to the front end. Here, something like listing host should be in here somewhere. List host, this thing. Here we're actually getting list of hosts back and then displaying them. What I think should happen is that this part of it, this part of it, where I get the storage and I get the host back, that should be somewhere central, and it should return a list of hosts, and then it's up to the caller to do what it wants with it. So for the API, we actually just return it to the servant, and it will turn it to JSON and fire back to front end. For the CLI, I'll run this code and just print the lines out. So that's another thing I was thinking about doing tonight. So those are the kinds of tidy up things I'm going to approach, and we'll just see how it goes. Might not be the most exciting episode, maybe quite good if you can't sleep, just put it in the background and have a little doze, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to enjoy myself anyway. Okay, so first thing I think is if I have a look at, this run hosts, it wasn't there, sorry, it was in the file storage. Yes, file storage did not implement stuff for participants and removing hosts and all that kind of stuff. So I'll maybe start by adding that stuff in, because I will need those to be able to run the code, basically to get a list of casts back and stuff like that. Okay, so this remove host is going to be remove host prime, and we can then tell it to create that. May have done that somewhere. Yeah, did it randomly done here. That's fine for me. Okay, so we have some storage and we have an actual host. And what we're going to do is, how this does work, so it's file storage. So what we're going to do is read the file in, I guess read it into memory, remove that element, and then write it back out again. I think that's what I did before. There's an old storage somewhere that does this. Where was the old storage? It was, it was storage for cast. Did that do it? I don't know what the code was. So remove host, called s.remove, which is down here. Nope, that's not it. Sorry, try again. Well, that's where it's used. It's not where it's defined. Maybe I deleted the old code. I'm going to assume we just build it into memory, delete it, and then write it back out again. Okay, so I think I can use ko.readfile. Read file, yeah. I need the file name, so that's going to be s. Oh, how does this work? Hang on, I'm just going to move this slightly further down so I can look at it next to some other code. This is in topics for some reason. Why did I put it with topics? Where's the host stuff? Add host was there, so add host. Okay, cool. We'll put it here. So removing host. I called it fs before. Makes sense. Move to center. Okay, so I can call a read file on s.host file. s.host file, sorry. All right, so read file. That needs to be lift into IO. No, we're currently, oh, sorry. What it's saying is it couldn't match type text with unit. It's because it returns a thing. So I can say something like all the hosts of that. Okay, and then what I want to do is split that into multiple lines. I already have read file in memory. In fact, we have list hosts, which is quite useful. Would it be useful? I can maybe reuse that because that'll give me like a list of hosts, then I can filter it. Okay, so I can say hosts, let hosts equal, oh no, it runs under IO, sorry, take it back. Hosts comes from this hosts prime. Okay, so we have a list of hosts, and then we want to say l.delete host from hosts. So that gives us our new hosts. We can say let new hosts equal to that. So we have our new hosts, and then we want to just write that back out again, I think. So we can say tio.write file, fs.hosts file, oops, hosts file, and we're going to write, so we got new hosts, so we turn it into some text. So to turn it to text, we are going to first of all call get host on new hosts. Let me just, sorry. Let me write this out a little bit. So the text we're going to write is we're going to call get host on new hosts. Okay, so this is now an array of texts. So then we just want to call unlines, I think. On that. There is no TIO to unlines, so how did I do that before? Did I create a helper for this? I did not. Read file, got some other crap in here. It was just t.onlines. Okay, I'll just find the old definition. Okay, so we read the stuff in. We delete that. Okay, so I didn't turn them into hosts before. I just read the lines in. I delete this thing from it, the marshalling of X. In fact, let me just copy that because that's probably almost good enough. Where was I with remove hosts? Okay, let me try again. But with some code I previously wrote. Okay. So path in this case is going to be fs.host file. Okay, we have a host. So here we can say marshal the host. And marshalling the host should be a thing. Because here, what's this marshal? Oh, I quickly defined it in place. Okay. With that. Okay, so we marshal the host by putting prefix in the front of it. Then we write the file back out again, unlining or like joining together those lines. Okay. And this is host.that. And then marshal, type of marshal is just marshal. Is that right? No, it's not right. Type of marshal, when it takes a host, calls get host on it. Oh no, oh, okay. It doesn't call get host on it. I'm not passing anything in, it's calling get host on this host, which is in the outer scope. Right. And then this path is fs.hosts file. That should be it, right? I'll just move this into a slightly different helper. So we can say marshal host, it's going to take a host, and it's going to turn it into text. So Marshall host is of some h is that. Okay, so now here I can say, got some brackets, but we say Marshall host of host, and up here we can say the same thing. Marshall host of host, call it h there, so I'll call it h again. Okay, that should be the definition of removing host. And unmarshal is just stripping the host prefix off. Okay, makes sense. One down. Adding participant. I wonder if I can make these names not clash, because what I'd really like to do is say this, but I don't think that works. Don't know. Say that, move it down to after hosts, but before topics. No, hosts start here for some reason. Okay, these are the hosts. Participants. And it's going to work like add host. So I might end up writing a generic helper for this, because they're essentially the same thing. You give it some text and it puts it into a file. But then, given that it's so simple to do, maybe it's not worth writing helper for that, because there is no prefix on the participant. So we don't need to marshal it in any particular way. It is just that. Actually, be a good participant. Oh, that doesn't work because I haven't imported it. So I need to do this. Okay, so add participant. We just say participant, add a new line onto it, and append it to the file. And it cannot error, so we should be good. Can it not error? It can error. That's interesting. So in the Postgres storage, look at our definition of add host. It says add person. And then we run execute DB, and then we check and see if we get a duplicate on the insertion. So I guess in the file-based storage, we want to do the same duplicate detection. So what we should really do is read the contents of the file. We should see if it's in there. If it is in there, we return the duplicate error. And if it's not in there, then we add it. Okay, so I'm going to write this as add person, because it's going to be the same for both hosts and participants. The way we add a person, given some file storage and some A, whatever the A is, then we want the marshalling method. So that's going to be a function which goes from A to text. And we're going to put it into file or not. Okay, so add person, given some file storage, some X, we're going to put in some marshal function. Now we can say read contents of the file first. So we can say it's tio.read file. But first of all, actually, before we do that, we're going to say let's the entry into the file. It's Marshall X. Yes, we have the entry we're looking for. Right, we read the file, and the file we're going to read is fs. Oh, there are multiple files. Are they the same file or are they different files now? Did I fix all that shit so I don't need to marshal stuff anymore? Where does this get created? It's used a lot, but where are we actually setting the file names? 1 second, let's go back to main. If these are in separate files, I can skip a lot of this shit. And if they're not, maybe we should make them separate files because it makes life a lot easier. Make file storage. Oh, now unfortunately they're in the same file. They're both in a file called people. Any reason to keep that? I mean, the marshalling and unmarshalling is lovely and all, but it does seem like it's a little bit complicated. It does mean, actually, when I'm doing duplicate searches, I need to search 2 files now. But that's not the end of the world. I mean, it just makes life a lot easier, doesn't it? You can obviously cope with separate files. Okay, so now, actually add person. What are we going to do? So we now know a person is just, well, it's going to be a host participant. I guess we can keep that typed, but when we're adding a person to the file, we can actually do is we can take a file path. So it's going to be host file participants file. Take text, which is just the thing we want to put into it, and then we'll return that. So to add a person, we need to get the host and get the participants and make sure it's not in either. So what we can say is check duplicate of our text of our X here. So X is going to be name. And actually, I think I want to do it like this. So I'll get that to return either storage error or unit. Because I think what will happen then is if I return a storage error, that'll just get thrown at this point. And if I don't return a storage error, then it should just check away unit and then run the next bit, which is going to be putting it into the file. Which is really just what is it? It's tio.append file. Don't need to do it's a single line. Append file path, which I will stick in here. And then the text, or the name, sorry, followed by a new line. Something like that. So Marshall can go. So we're going to look for duplicate, and if it's not a duplicate, then what's the problem here? Oh, then we append them. All right, and then you say pure right thing. That work? No, it should just be that. That work. Okay, so running throwIO will run the check duplicate, and that will return either storage error or unit when I define it. If it returns storage error, I think these don't run, but we'll find out. But if it is not a duplicate, so it does return unit, we chuck the unit away, we run this, we chuck away whatever this returns, and then we just return right unit. Do I need that then? Yes, because this will return unit rather than write unit. So that might work if I can get it right. So it's pure of that. No. Bit confused now. So this seemed to work. So pure of right of unit. But this thing returns IO of unit. I really just want to lift whatever comes back into right. Not sure. Okay, let's not spend too much time on that. I want to write check duplicate. Text IO of A. Okay, not super helpful. IO of either storage error or unit. Okay, and just give it a name. And we can say check duplicate host, and also check duplicate host and check duplicate. Sorry, my mind's gone somewhere else. Participant. Just think about this. Could also do that. Oops, do this. I think. So I think I can use applicated rather than IO because there's no dependency between the two actions. They're just discrete things. But let me play with that in a second. So where check duplicate host. So here we want to list hosts. So actually just going to read the host file in and look for the name in there. To read the host file in, we can call tao.readFile, and we've lost our storage. So I can no longer that's very annoying. I need my storage back because I need to be able to say so it's file storage is pointing to me. I need to be able to say to it, check in the hosts file and check the participants file, and they're set on this file storage. This is fs. So we're going to read fs.hosts file. Gives me back all of the lines. That's the file path. This should give me back. Oh, it's giving me back a list of text. So we want to call t.lines on it. Okay, so at this point we should have a list of text. and we want to say we want to ask if there's an element in there. So we know that, I think. It's a bit tricky because it's going to be easier if I store the contents of this rather than trying to use this function application to pass elem into it. I think. I mean, that's kind of what I want, but I don't think that works. So let's write it the easy way. I'm just trying to go 0.3 all the time. So this I can say hosts is, actually I'll still call the lines at this point. And then we can say if name is an element of hosts, then we have an error. So this is where we want to say pure duplicate error. That's what it was. Jump to here for a second. Yeah, duplicate error. Else pure unit. Okay, so we've got, first we're going to import this. It's not, whoa, it's not pure here. Okay. This is pure of right of unit, and this is pure of left of duplicate error. So I can just lift pure a little bit higher. Get rid of those. Okay. So to check duplicate host, we load the file up, and then we just look for the name inside it. So I could just make this a bit more generic, and we could say check duplicate in file. Let's call it that. It's a very long name. And that's going to take a file path, and it's going to go to IO, either storage error or unit. We check duplicate in file, given some path. We also need the name we're looking for, but it's in the other scope, so I'm just going to grab it from there. Okay, so now we don't read fs.hosts file. We're just going to read the path we've been given. We won't call it hosts, we'll call it lines. Let's call it x's, just to avoid clashing. And then some name and x's, then that. Okay. So here we can say check duplicate in file, fs.hosts file, and also check duplicate. Select for me. Check duplicate in file, and then it's fs.participants file. Okay, and now it's saying couldn't match type either storage error to IO of la with actual type. Oh yes, sorry, I'm not checking it away. Okay, so now check duplicate should work. And then up here, we're also going to need storage because we need to be able to grab multiple files. Instead of file path, I might just have something that goes from storage to the file path. Okay, so given some storage, some path accessor, this is file storage, this is file storage, and now my lines are too long. Right, file storage. The way of getting the file path, I'm going to put it into the name, then we're going to do this. Okay, so this S is actually fs check duplicate is like that, and then we can say path of fs. So in theory, that's how we add a person. So to add a person, we give it file storage, we give it a way of getting the path back, we give it the name we're trying to add, and then it should either throw storage error or it should just be successful. So add participant, given file storage and the participant, we know what we're doing here. And this should just be add person, takes the file storage, takes the function which will give me back the path for the participant, which is participants file, and then it takes text, which is if I do in brackets here because it's p dot get participant. I think that should work. And then if I copy this and go back up to add host, here this should be an H, get these lines, and it's h.getHost. It's not participants file, it's hosts file. Okay. I think that should work. Let's find out. I have one running already. Ish, here we go. File build. Okay, so if I say participants add Hattie, that should be good enough. If I cat, oops, this file, participants, we've got Hattie in it. And if I try and add Hattie again, it's added Hattie twice, so that didn't work the way I expected. Okay, so we just jump into add person. I was kind of expecting if you get to here and it throws storage error, nothing else should happen. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So just, oops, quickly check something. So let's make file REPL for a second. And we just find a function which it's going to just throw, it's going to say left error. So the type of this is going to be either string or let's say int. Okay, so we run it, we get the error back. And then I'm going to define B is going to be it's going to be right of 1, and that's also going to be either string or int. Okay, and then I think if I do that, what I'd expect to happen is it say left error, and it does. Okay, and if you say C is right 2, which is either string or int, if I say C and if I'm in B, I should get right 1. Yeah. Okay, so that does work the way I expect. So it's possible that check duplicate is not working, rather than this being the problem, but let's find out. But I expect this line to not have run, and it seems like it did run. Okay, so check duplicate. So given file storage, we check in host file and then we check in participants file. Check in host, well, we don't really care about the host file, but the participants file, we're going to say read the contents of that file, and it should give us a bunch of lines. Okay, so read file. Was there something like get lines? No. All right, file. Oh, I can't see anything that's going to give me back a list of texts. Okay, so this should give me back the contents of the file. This should give me back the contents of the file split on new line. Go through them. Oh, sorry, it's not if name is an element of X's. Yes, it is. Sorry, for every, yeah, we're going to see if the name we pass in already occurs in, it's like, I'm just going to check a sneaky debug in here. Can I import debug? No. Oh, what was the debug? There's some kind of logging thing. That was a debug that I could use. It would be something like it's just an impure function, and I can just give it some text and it should print it out for me. So I should be able to say something like debug looking for, and then I can say name in and then I can say show X's. Show, no, show of t dot unpack, like that. But debug is not in scope, so it's not going to go very well. Is debug not a thing? It is not in core. What was the debug thing called? So I've used it before, and it's, I mean, it's a bit naughty to use a pure functional language, but it was quite handy at the time. It just did printing a line. So what we're looking for is something that's of type in base, of which are going to be many. Oh, it's not quite that actually. It is going to be string to that, which should be fewer. throwIO. Debug.trace. That's what I'm looking for. So it's just trace, I think. So I can say trace something, and then the thing that I want to do. Okay, so I can say trace. Looking for that. And then in theory, just indent this a bit more. Okay, so can we import trace? Yes. Okay, name is going to be some text. So is that right? Yes, it's some text. So it's going to be t.unpack name. And then here, it's weirdly that. So I'm going to go through all of the lines of text. I'm going to turn back into strings. I'm just going to show that array of strings, list of strings. That's what I'm thinking. Okay. I'll build. So if I say this, it says nothing. Well, that's annoying. So here if I say trace, I can sort of like adding, and then just adding a participant. Not very exciting. I want to see if trace is showing anything. Yeah, it is there. Okay, that's interesting. So it's like the duplicate checking code is not running. That's not what I expected at all. Okay. It's not got a lot of haddies in it. Oh. So let's truncate that file. There are now no participants. Okay. I could have deleted it, but anyway. So this far is working. We drop into add person. You say check duplicate. Yeah, it's like it's not going to be on this bit. Just out of curiosity, if I comment that line out and only do the check in participant file, okay. So build it again, run it. Still not saying it. It still doesn't seem to be getting to here. If I draw that back and that one in. I mean, when you call out person, the first thing it does is call check duplicate. It's called check duplicate file, which should just log something. It doesn't matter whether it's participants or host file. Let me just put trace checking duplicates. And we can chuck it away. What can we do with this? Weren't all the haddies gone that time? Oh, yeah, it shouldn't have got a duplicate. That's correct. So I had to delete all of the haddies, so I wouldn't have expected to have a duplicate. But this trace line is not inside the if, it's just saying it's looking for it. So it's still expected to have logged something, even though there were no actual duplicates at that point. So I'm just going to put a random trace in. Random trace is no good because it will not get used. Oh, I might know what's happening here. There's no demand for it. So define check duplicate to be these two pieces of code, but I'm not using the result of it, so it'll get lazily evaluated. But the lazily won't be evaluated, I think, which is why I'm not seeing the trace line, because I haven't demanded the result of that. So to demand the result of that, I could say something like let I'm surprised this doesn't create demand, but anyway. I can't just do that, I don't think. Buying pattern expression context. So can I say something like let buying x equal that? No. Oh, how do we do this? Haskell strict force. Explicit string this. With buying patterns enabled, you can write it like this. And that you seek to do it. Okay, so I think I can do this and then just enable buying patterns. No. I cannot. So what's the difference here? They're doing it in arguments to things. I think. I can say, what does it look like? Return dollar buying dollar buying that. All right. Good match type. Oh, not quite. This also runs under IO. Oh, this is very annoying. I don't just know how to do this. So we could say something like let host check equal that, but it's not because it's running under IO. So host check is going to be this. Participant check is going to be this. Then we can say return dollar buying host check. We'll just do participant check actually because that's the one I was testing. And we'll comment that out. Oops. Okay. I'll work that in a second. But that, I think that should force the running a participant check, if I understood that random image correctly, which should at least tell me that it's looking for it. I think it should work as well, actually. Looking for Hattie in Hattie. Okay. Looking for Hattie in Hattie Hattie. Looking for Hattie in Hattie Hattie Hattie. Not quite. Not quite working, but at least it's running it. It's weird though, because I think up here I would expect it to be demand for it, but it doesn't seem to be because I thought this would force it. Maybe it doesn't because I don't use result anywhere. Well, I do use result. That's kind of important. Okay. Function f at x. Yeah, so because it's been used, it's effectively forcing it, or demanding it at least. Here is using seek, which I need to look at in a second, which is forcing it. So what about strictness and bind? You probably don't want to watch me read a web page. I want a quick answer. Monadic operations have to be non-strict. Okay, but how does it help me? I mean, I could write it out long form, right? I could say duplicate is that, and then we can say case duplicate of, I need to put do in place, I'm doing this. And then if it is left and then some error, then we just return that thing, so it's that pure left error. And if it is right unit, then we do this thing. That should force it, I think, because we're using duplicate here. We'll demand it. Shouldn't keep saying force it. It'll demand value here, I think. And then I think I can just move my pure outside. And then ditch this one. No, I can't, because this needs to run under IO. Okay. Compile it. And there we go. Okay, so that's enough to force it, so we can say to demand it, so it'll run the code and we say Hattie is already in the cast. Okay, if I add my host check back in again, is that enough? So the fact I've demanded up here, is that enough to force this to run? I should get the same result, but I might not. No, that looks good. So looking for Hattie in the empty list, then looks for it in the participants file. So it's already in the cast. Okay, all of that for this line. Okay, so I don't know how I would demand it when just using bind. I want like a strict form of bind. This is quite a lot of code just to run this, but anyway, that should work. Instantly, if I run it on hosts, that should also notice it. It says how these are in the cast, that's cool. And then if I say hippie, and trying that hippie again, you can see hippie's gone into the hosts file. And now I can't add a participant called hippie, I think. Why is hippie in here twice? That was unexpected. In fact, here, it didn't notice it was in the cast. Confused now. So I tried to add somewhere up here, or wherever this was called. I tried to say host add Hattie, and it didn't add Hattie because Hattie was already in this list. I added hippie, and then added hippie again, and it worked. Hippie to participants, and it worked. So it's still not working the way I think it should be. And I have an idea why. Okay, I think it's the same problem again. So I think what's happening is there's no real demand for this, because it can just demand this and get an answer. Okay. That's annoying. When I did it on a command line, it did work, but I was giving it a value, so I'm guessing that was demanding it straight away. If I give it a function, would it? Oh, I don't know. We drop out the IO for a second. I mean, this is going to force it though, but I think it's going to force it. So you can say host check is check duplicate in file fs.host file. We need to do in here. Okay, that's host check and then participants check. Okay, and we can assume that is lazily evaluated. But here we could say pure, was it $buying host check participants check. Is that enough? Okay, add hippie. Hippie is already in the cast. Add Hattie. Hattie's already in the cast. Okay, that's good. Add Hattie. Hattie's in the cast. Okay, that seems to work. So then I can say duplicate is that, and then I can say pure. And then maybe I can force this as well. So I can say duplicate, and then the rest of the stuff. So what's this problem now? This, oh, that's why. So I couldn't float pure outside because this needs to run to IO. Huh. Okay, so I can't write that out in a short form, I don't think. Okay, I didn't get very far in just refactoring all the code, but I done an interesting little rabbit hole about laziness. It managed to get it to work, but I'm not happy with it. I'm going to take the trace out. I don't think I need it anymore. But it was helpful for telling me whether or not the code actually ran. I guess that's something. This whole function can be inline now, I think. Can it be inlined? Maybe, maybe not. Let's not go there. Okay, so yeah, where do we get to? Right, so didn't get very far with refactoring. Did hit a problem with laziness. Find a way of getting the value out, but I'm going to have a little look during the week if I remember and have time. There's a nicer way of dealing with this, where I basically want to force on a bind. So I want to make a bind strict. Even though I'm not using the resulting value of the bind, I have a suspicion that if I use proper bind, so these symbols, because this value is being passed through the chain, it would be demanded by the last thing in the chain, as long as I used it in some way. Whereas, because I'm throwing the result away in the interim, I'm guessing it is at that point lazy. But I don't know for certain. I think it needs more investigation. I'll go and watch a whole bunch of Alexis King videos and not really understand again. But yeah, cool. I didn't get very far, but I got somewhere. Thank you for watching along, and hopefully see you again next time. I guess I'll be doing more of the same. Cool, thanks for watching. Bye.